Okay, today's lesson is about finding the x and y intercept. So finding your x and your y intercepts. All right, if we remember, the x and y intercepts are where our linear line or graph crosses the y-axis and the x-axis. And let's say that this is the point 0, 3, and let's say that this is -2, well, let's say -4, 0. Okay? All right, and back when we were doing the function tables, we noticed that the y-intercept, that the x was always 0, right? And for x-intercept, the y is always 0. Okay, if you notice here, for my x and y coordinates, the y coordinate is 0 for your x-intercept, and the x coordinate is 0 for your y-intercept. So we're going to use this same property to find our x and y intercept when we're doing equations, using linear equations, okay? So let's say that I've got, let's say I have y equals -4x minus 2. All right, and I want to find out what the x-intercept is, okay? And I know with an x-intercept that my y is always 0. So what I'm going to do is say if the y is 0, I'm going to substitute 0. And then you're just simply going to solve for x. Okay? We're substituting 0. All right? For our y. And then we're going to solve for x. Okay? So we're solving for our x. So if you remember, to solve for a variable, we isolate the variable and get rid of everything on the side with it by doing the opposite operation. So I'm going to add 2 to both sides. So I'll have 2 equals -4x. And then I'm going to get rid of the -4, and since it's multiplying with x, I'm going to divide by x. So in this case, reduce this. So x equals -1/2. All right, and since it's a point, I'm going to put -0.5. Okay. Now for my y-intercept, I'm going to do the same thing, except I'm going to substitute the x-coordinate with 0, because we know that our y-coordinates, the x is always 0, and we have a number for y. So I'm going to put y equals -4, and I'm going to substitute x with 0. So y equals 0 minus 2, or y equals -2. Okay? So now our x-intercept is -5, 0, and our y-intercept is 0, -2. So our graph would look something like that. So if we take an equation and just find the x and y intercept, we can graph it easily. Now, I will say that a lot of times your x and your y are going to be decimals. Okay, it doesn't always work out to a perfect integer. All right, like this one was -0.5. Well, you could do an estimate between -1 and 0. It would have been somewhere in between. So when if you were to graph them, you would do it like that. All right, let's try a couple more of these. If I've got y equals -9/4x minus 6, And I'm going to find my x-intercept. So x-intercept, that means our y is 0, all right? So we'll replace, so negative 9 over 4x minus 6. So now I'm just going to solve for x. So add 6 to both sides. So 6 equals negative 9/4 x. And then I'm going to divide by negative 9/4. Now, if you remember, dividing a fraction is the same thing as multiplying with its reciprocal. Flip it. You remember, what is it, back in 5th, 6th grade? Keep it, change it, flip it. All right, yeah. So you, when you're dividing fractions, like 1/2 divided by 3/4, you keep this, you change that, and you flip this. And then you just multiply. It would be 4/6. Okay, so that's what we're doing here, is we're keeping, changing, flipping. All right, so I'm going to say negative 4/9 times 6, which is the same thing as 6 over 1. So now just multiply your numerator and multiply your denominator. So negative 24 over 9 equals x. Now, if I had to graph that, this isn't slope, so I can make this a decimal. So it would be, let's see, negative, let me go in there 2 times, and with 6 left over, so 2/3. Okay, so x equals negative 2.6 repeating. All right, and then for our y, let's get some little bit of room here. For my y, remember that to find the y-intercept, all you're going to do is substitute 0. Let's write this down here, y-intercept. On y-intercept, the x is always 0. So all you're going to do is substitute the x with 0. All right, and this is the one that's really easy because it's always this, anything times 0 is 0, right? So it's y equals negative 6. So it's always going to be your intercept, because in slope-intercept form, isn't that your y-intercept? Okay. So your graph would look something like, well, 0, negative 6, and if I have 1, 2, 3, it would be in between, a little bit in between. So your graph looks something like that. All right, let's look if we have 5x minus y equals 6. And that's standard form, right? So the way I do these is, if you're replacing by 0 for your x or y, you can write it, if I say 5 times 0 minus y equals 6. Well, it's the same thing as just covering this up, right? And you have this, so y equals negative 6. Okay. For my x, it would replace that with your y with a 0. So really you're covering that up, and you have 5x equals 6. So x equals 6 over 5, which is 1 1/5. Okay, or 1.2. Okay. All right, but if you don't feel comfortable with that, you can do the steps and replace the variables with 0. Okay. All right, let's try another. 2x minus 5y equals 25. So I'm going to replace with 0. And I think some of you will feel comfortable enough to just cover up. It's kind of called the cover up method, but I can't do it on video because I can't put my hand over that and you see it. All right. So if I'm solving for x, if I'm substituting 0 for my y, right? 0 times -5 is 0, right? So this is gone. So 2x equals 25. X equals 25 over 2, which is, not 10. Where's my eraser? Twelve and a half. And if I take the same problem and I replace x with 0, well, 2 times 0 is 0, so that's gone. So -5y equals 25. Divide by -5, so y equals -5. All right, so there's my x-intercept and my y-intercept. Okay, my x-intercept, 12.5. My y-intercept, it's going to be 0, -5. All right, let's try not a particular form. What if I have, and you won't see a lot of these, but I wanted to do one of them, so when you see it, you won't be like, what is that? All right, -3y minus 9 plus 2x equals 0. Yeah, it's not any form, it's just a regular equation, but it is linear because we don't have any exponents, right? So let's look for our x-intercept. So we're going to replace y with 0. So -3 times 0 minus 9 plus 2x equals 0. So this is gone. So now I'm just going to solve for x. Plus 9. So 2x equals 9. And then divide by 2. X equals 4.5. Okay, so 4.5. And now to do, let's go back and erase this. So now we're going to do our y-intercept, and when we do that, our x is going to be 0, all right? So -3y minus 9 plus 2 times 0 equals 0. So 2 times 0 is 0, so that's gone. Now we're just going to solve for y. So plus 9. So -3y equals 9. Divide by -3. So y equals -3. So if we graph that, 0, -3, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4.5 would be about here. And you'd have your line. Okay. All right. I think you pretty well get the gist of that. It's really not difficult as long as you don't have a problem isolating a variable and solving for a variable. Okay, remember back in August when I told y'all you've got to know how to solve an equation. Above anything, you need to know how to solve an equation because you'll be doing it the rest of the year. Well, here you go. We're solving equations again, right? All right. Remember, on Fridays, for my virtual and for my face-to-face kids, I have a Zoom that goes on between 11 and 12 for my virtual, and my face-to-face kids, if you have any questions on anything, you can also click on the Zoom between 11 and 12 and ask any questions you might have. Virtual kids, I've only seen, I think I saw Madison one time. Um, but I haven't seen y'all at all. I'd like to see you. Even if just to say hello. Remember, you just to get on the Zoom meeting. It's not Zoom. It's Google Meets. You go on your Google Classroom and go to classwork, and on the top up there, it's got a little camera. If you at 11 o'clock or any time between 11 and 12, if you'll click that, it'll open up your camera and your audio, and yeah, I will be there. Okay, so yeah, if you're stuck on anything, have any questions, need me to do any clarification or reteach you anything, feel free to get on that meeting. Okay, all right, thanks y'all.